You may have noticed last week we did a story about the fate of the bile bears, terrible existences. These poor bears live in Asia, mined in effect for the bile that comes out of their bodies, and a magnificent charity called Animals Asia is working to free them and has had some success in this area. So this week we're going to focus on still in Asia, I'm afraid, the plight of the Asian elephants. Now, a lot of people, decent people, go on holiday for these elephant packages. They go to Thailand, out in the Far East, and you see all the elephants. And they go for elephant rides, and they see the elephants, and they think, "Oh, this is nice." But however, what they don't realise is by going on these holidays, they are unwittingly sponsoring organised cruelty on an epic scale, and something has to be done about it. And a warm welcome to animal rights activist and, of course, famous actor, Downton Abbey, ever decreasing circles. Damn good on stage he is as well, by the way. He is the great Peter Egan. Welcome, Peter.
Kevin, how are you?
I'm very, very well. So let's talk about the elephants. We've got a few pictures here. We're going to talk about Fargan, the elephant. Is that a girl or a boy?
A boy, I think.
A boy. Now, first of all, now look at that. First of all, this is what happens to these elephants when you don't see them. Can you explain what on earth is going on with this poor creature at the moment? What are they doing to him?
Well, this is the beginning of a process called pajan, which translated into English means breaking of the spirit. And as you rightly said, tourists going to Southeast Asia to want to ride elephants or watch them painting pictures or riding bikes or doing tricks. The only way that an elephant is forced into that role is by the breaking of the elephant's spirit. And if I can just read you this little passage here, Pajan, the breaking of the spirit, the baby elephant is first tethered and dragged to a clearing where the crush cage, and what you're looking at there is a crush cage, is located. Its fragile legs are bound with ropes, and the animal is relentlessly beaten with sharp metal tools and bull hooks for several weeks. Starved of food, deprived of water, this extreme form of torture is said to be so traumatic that neither the mother nor the calf are able to recognize one another once the process has been complete.
Oh my God! And every elephant that you see has been through the when you go out there, it has been through this god-awful process.
You will not encounter a single elephant that has not gone through this process, because an elephant doesn't want to paint pictures. It doesn't want people to ride on its back. It doesn't want to do silly tricks for tourists to have a bit of fun and think, "Oh, I can see an elephant dancing. Isn't that sweet?" No wild animal wants to do that. The only way they do that is as a result of this torture. And in the final stage of the pajan, the elephant's mahout, that's the trainer, and that will be one of the people who has tortured the elephant to this degree, will bring the elephant its first meal and its water, and will be the one to release the elephant and lead it away from the crate. And by doing that, the elephant now perceives the mahout as being its savior, basically, and the person it can trust. And you just saw a weapon.
What's that thing there, Peter? So if we could just go back with just talk to my production team. Can we go back with the pictures a little bit and dwell on them for a second? There's something that goes around their ear. What is that all about?
That's an ankus or a bullhook. And if you see it, it's a long stick.
Yeah.
There it is. You see, it's a long stick and it's hooked behind the elephant's ear. And that is a sharp object. There it is. You can see it there.
Yeah.
Now, the mahout or the trainer will sit on the elephant's back and he will beat the elephant's head with that bullhook. And in order to get the elephant to move in certain ways, to behave, to follow his every instruction, he will beat the elephant's head with that bullhook. He will also do it behind the elephant's ear, and at all the sensitive parts of the elephant's body that will be used to train the elephant. And that is how the elephant is trained to either sit on its hind legs, stand on one foot. When the elephant is also painting a picture, for instance, elephants can't see straight ahead. They see that way. So the elephant will have a paintbrush in its trunk, and it will be looking at the mahout, and the mahout will be training the elephant's trunk to follow a course which makes it look like it's painting a picture. All it is doing is going through a muscular action that is being forced out of him through fear and through this terrible cruelty.
And they're reduced to sort of circus performers. We just showed a picture of them all dressed up in football colours, pretending to be Neymar and people like that. Also, there's a picture we've got here. I don't know if we're going to show it, but one with a sort of silly pair of glasses on, with spectacles. In other words, they're reduced to the level, of performing goons.
Humiliation. The elephants are humiliated for fun, so that tourists can have. Now, what is very important is there it is again, the anchors hanging from the elephant's ear is incredibly
That's the football, by
sensitive.
the way. Yeah, there's the football. There's a Brazil colours with Neymar. As I say, there's another one of the elephant doing a hula hoop with his trunk, and as I say, another wearing a silly pair of glasses. As you say, unfortunately, a lot of people sort of think this is kind of fun.
Yes,
and it is never fun. You should never dress animals up.
Absolutely.
Allow them their dignity.
What's very bad, Kevin, is the elephant's trunk, which is such a sensitive part of its body, and it's the part of its body with which it communicates with humans and with each other. They wrap their trunks around each other as a form of affection. When the elephant is being subjected to pajan, often the trunk comes through the cage, and the trunk is beaten so hard in order for the mahout to have total power. Sometimes the elephants commit suicide, and they do that by suffocating themselves.
Really?
So you tie the elephant's trunk to a long pole, so it has no control over that extraordinarily sensitive part of its body. It's absolutely devastating, and it is shocking.
Let's get a couple more statistics. I'm reading here that Asian elephants are a very depleted species, and 40% of the world's remaining Asian elephants are in captivity, in this sort of captivity.
Absolutely.
So nearly half of them are suffering this fate when they should be in the wild. I mean, that's terrible.
They should be in the wild, or they should be in the sanctuaries. There are wonderful sanctuaries in Thailand and Vietnam that if people want to interrelate with a wonderful creature like an elephant, they can go and just see them living as they should live in the wild. And also, I mean, luckily last year, our government brought in the Low Welfare Activities Abroad Act, which will eventually outlaw any British company that is advertising things like elephant rides and experiences with elephants. Once they finally name all of the species that they don't want to be sort of played with in this way, that it will come into law, and English tourists, British tourists won't be able to book these appalling holidays. And also the stats are that I think something like 90% of tourists who witness this kind of cruelty say their holiday has been absolutely ruined because of it. And elephants, another interesting thing about elephants, they look like they should have such strong spines and strong backs. In fact, elephants' backs are very weak. And if you think that to get a ride, it's an 80-pound kind of seat that's strapped to its back, and put a couple of tourists on the back of it, you've got 300 pounds sitting on a poor elephant's back, and it kind of crushes their spine. It's just absolutely horrible, Kevin.
No one should ever go on an elephant ride. No one should go and sponsor this awful trade. But of course, it drives these poor creatures insane.
Totally.
And there are stories, aren't there, of them attacking tourists.
Yeah, well,
I had the
I
pleasure of
interviewed.
meeting your friend Duncan McNair some time ago, who works tirelessly
He
to
does.
try save the Asian elephants. That's his charity. Now he sent a message with about someone called Helen Costigan. Can you tell us her
Yes.
story?
I interviewed Helen Costigan a couple of years ago. Helen went to Nonnuch, which is one of these big kind of game parks in, I think it's in Thailand.
In
Um,
Thailand, yeah, Thailand, yeah.
and she went with her father and her sister, and she was ignorant, as most people are, of the horrors that happen to these poor elephants. And she went to witness, an elephant, doing tricks and stuff like that. And she was sitting in the front row, and this elephant, who was quite close to her, something had happened, and the elephant turned, and the elephant attacked her, her father, and her sister, killed her sister with its tusk, and also wounded her father. Her father recovered, thank goodness, but her sister sadly didn't. And Helen Costigan was also very, very badly wounded. It took her years to recover. And that was something that was so shocking for her, because she had no understanding, as I said, as so many tourists don't, that these elephants are basically on a knife edge. And if they're not brutally controlled by their mahout, if something happens and they just can, be let their emotion free, then they are incredibly dangerous because of what's happened to them.
I'm just reading here that venue where that attack happened,
Non-Nuch.
yeah, is still promoted by 120 British-based travel companies,
Absolutely.
with thousands of children visiting regularly and on a daily basis. Now, the thing about all of this is these people, these holidaymakers, British holidaymakers and holidaymakers from around the world, are decent people, but they don't realise that they are sponsoring this dreadful organised cruelty. This is your chance to deliver a message to people who might be considering going on one of these awful holidays.
Well, what I would say, Kevin, is that any holiday that involves an interaction with a wild animal, specifically an elephant, don't book it. Stay away from it. Do a bit of investigation, see if you can find a wonderful sanctuary in the same country and visit the sanctuary. You'll see peaceful and happy elephants and not tormented ones.
Does Duncan McNair and people like you, Asian elephants, the Save the Asian Elephants, do they manage to save many? Do they manage to get elephants out of this captivity?
A small amount, I think, but the great work that Duncan is doing, Duncan McNair, he's a brilliant man. As you say, he's the founder and the CEO of STAE, STAE, that's Save the Asian Elephant.
Yeah.
Anyone who is interested, you can just Google that at STAE, and you'll find all the information you need about the Asian elephant. And you can also see the most distressing 4-minute film about the whole process of Pajan. Okay. And he's a remarkable man, and he is bringing great awareness. And he is mainly responsible for this bill that came through, the low welfare activities abroad animal bill. I mean, he pushed that very, very hard, got 1 million signatures, did great work. He's been working on it now for 10 years, and he's achieving a huge amount. I'm a patron, of course, for his charity, and I admire him enormously. He might be someone that you might be interested in having on.
Well, I will have him. I met him at a function that you were at Parliament. And he doesn't hold back in telling you about the situation.
He doesn't.
I remember, and well, he should not. So it was good to talk to him. And so yes, how can people help save the Asian elephants? Go onto that website and maybe donate.
Go onto the website, support it, and of course donate, because all of these charities need financial support to carry on their work. So I would Google at Save the Asian Elephant and just give them some support. That would be wonderful.
Now, in terms of Duncan's Act, the Animals Low Welfare Activities Abroad Act, I mean, how does that affect holidaymakers who might be enticed by these packages. I mean, is it getting a message to them, or are they still going? How does that work?
Yeah, because it hasn't come into force, this act yet, because they haven't actually stipulated which animals they are protecting, the ban isn't in place. But hopefully that will happen after the election. And then for this time next year, when people are booking, or when people are booking their holidays, they won't be able to book holidays that involve this kind of activity with these wonderful, wonderful creatures.
Good. And in the meantime, as you said, Peter, anyone who's watching, don't book these holidays. Take your own initiative. Don't book them because this has got to stop. There are 1,200 companies promoting these
Unbelievably, isn't it?
holidays, and it's got to stop. It's got to stop.
Yes.
So
there are only now 50,000 Asian elephants left in existence. So they are an endangered species. And as you say, 50% of them are in this kind of trade. And indeed, 50% of the Asian elephants that experience Pajan actually perish.
Yeah. And one last statistic, because the statistics are shocking. Save the African Elephants has also identified, talking about the danger to tourists. I mean, if nothing else, when you're considering booking one of these holidays, don't do it because of the awful cruelty involved, but don't do it because you're putting yourself at risk. Duncan's charity has identified 1,000 tourists catastrophically injured and a further 800 killed by abused captive Asian elephants. So if nothing else, don't book these holidays for yourself, but don't book them for the sake of those poor elephants. Peter, always a pleasure. We'll regroup next week. There's going to be an issue a week. We're going to do this every week. It's a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you, Peter. Peter Egan there, a famous actor, but also a tireless animal rights activist. And let me know what you think about that. I mean, people don't realise, as I say, decent people go on these holidays. Oh, look, it's the elephants. You see that contraption? They break these animals. They put them in these awful contraptions and they break them. And the most shocking thing I heard then from Peter, I've never heard of this before, that these elephants are so in despair, so distressed, that they sometimes commit suicide. Have I heard of animals committing suicide before? Unbelievable. We've got to stop this sort of thing. We've got to stop it.